Please remember to subscribe. It's just one click for you, but it helps me a lot creating new videos. Thank you. Please share this video. The wealthy elite has been doing very well during the pandemic, despite economic shutdowns that have devastated small businesses and caused widespread job losses and disruption. The rich got richer because we have seen a huge consolidation of power, with the multinational corporations getting richer and small family businesses being shut down. The government shutdowns caused this, not the pandemic. Never let a good pandemic go to waste. That was the intent. The $1.9 trillion should have given every American man, woman, and child just under $6,000. You're only getting $1,400. Who's getting the other $4,600? And why isn't it you? Allegedly, only 9% go to the direct COVID relief. Rest is the cotton candy for well-connected at home and, regrettably, also abroad. Can't figure out why your industry or business is shut down? Why are your kids kept out of school? Why your church was closed? Like other scenarios that defy simple explanation, just take a look down the money trail. Someone's making buckets of money of this lockdown, and it's not the people working from home. There exists a great divide between large corporations and small businesses with 500 employees or less. The divide is only getting worse, as evidenced by these unnecessary lockdowns, including hordes of illegal immigrants being allowed to enter U.S. borders unvetted. Our country is in terrible shape, and things are only going to get much worse as Joe Biden signs more job-killing executive orders, destroying the mom and pops and keep feeding the slime a Con Valley. He's definitely not concerned about the average taxpayer, just his rich constituents. All done on purpose to hurt the middle class and the working people by the political martial law lockdowns that only benefited Amazon, Walmart, Costco, etc., etc. We've been learning that since they busted all the unions, outsourced American manufacturing jobs, screwed the financial system, and left us with 4 decades of stagnant wages, while the cost of living goes up and the rich get richer by just having money and producing absolutely nothing. The rich do not labor in the fields, or in factories, or basically do any manual labor at all. With high-speed internet, they can work from the poolside cabana or the office. It is up to their whim. Most working people have to go to the place where they work. You cannot wait tables from home, you cannot do auto repair from most home locations, you cannot assemble cars or air conditioners or most widgets from home. When stores were closed, only online retailers and big box stores were allowed to be open. The corner store was closed, but Walmart and Target were open. Amazon continued to grow while Joe's Hardware was not allowed to be open. Those of us who are fortunate to work from home didn't miss a paycheck. However, those who have to be on site for employment, manufacturing, retail, service industry, etc., weren't able to work. The whole thing was never about a virus, for those have been around forever. This was about command and control. Of course, the rich got richer. Only small businesses suffered. Their huge box stores were labeled essential, while mom and pop stores were all forced to close. Because the elites made sure they didn't suffer. Now, there's a reason why it's called the oligarchy. The ruling and wealthy class always stays above the misery of the masses. This makes it easy for the Hollywood crowd to spout their phony nonsense. Even in communist Russia, there are super wealthy, called oligarchs, that benefit from government control and monopoly. That's how it works, that's why they want it here. That's why illegals are needed, cheap labor, votes, and weakening public resolve with people afraid to look racist or afraid to hate the invading army. The oligarchs are importing at the people's expense. Yeah, bring more people in. We already have power shortages, water rationing, and people in tents lining the highways with piles of trash and human waste. But by all means, keep piling on. The rich make their money off wars and all things disastrous to the common man, woman, and they always have. It is the way it is. The downside of capitalism is greed. And the greed is out of control and is destroying capitalism. Greed is what is pushing the country to socialism. People have been sitting at home playing video games and bringing home $1,000 a week on unemployment. The government is paying much better than the private sector. I'm 100% for a capitalist economy, but it must be regulated, or else the cheating gets out of control. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please take a second to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to also hit the notification bell. Middle-class families in America are seeing their incomes stagnating as they are squeezed by the ultra-rich, taking a bigger slice. The middle classes are squeezed and aggrieved. Once the linchpin of developed economies, the socioeconomic grouping is now threatened by job losses and stagnant wages. Net worth data from the Federal Reserve suggests that the left-behind contagion has spread to all Americans aside from the top 10%. While still wealthier overall than most other groups, even the upper middle class is feeling the pinch of income stagnation. The growth rate of this group's incomes is lagging behind that of those both lower and higher on the socioeconomic ladder. The cost of many products and services the upper middle class buys, from autos to college educations, is outpacing overall inflation. While having access to credit, these households are increasingly tapping into costlier forms of debt. All of the economic collapses in the U.S. over the last 40 years have had several things in common. Massive tax cuts were enacted that benefited the rich, and the corporations' working-class wages remained stagnant, even though deficits caused by tax cuts for the rich increased. The national debt increases in the national debt went unaddressed. So that the politicians who enacted the tax cuts that caused the increases in the debt could fool the public into believing that tax cuts were good for them. In some cases, the policies of tax cuts for the rich, which are the basis of an impending economic collapse, were accompanied by increases in military spending, and indeed, increase armed conflicts involving the U.S. Whenever these conditions are present, the potential for economic collapse becomes almost inevitable. An America that spends half of the federal taxes on warfare ignores internal infrastructure, so that it now requires an immediate $4.9 trillion infusion just to halt the decay, ceased taxing the rich at the tail end of the 1970s, which coincides perfectly with the rapidly increasing inequality, and that no longer taxes corporations nearly as much as it once did cannot possibly maintain equilibrium. And just servicing the massive foreign debt is soaking up a vast amount of the tax income. But people still want to live decent lives, so they go into debt, and the death spiral is on. There's little mystery why the US is crashing while the rich are getting obscenely wealthy. What's hard is figuring out how to fix it. More and more money printing is on the horizon. It will never stop. We will print money until everyone is a billionaire, and a gallon of gas will be $1 million. Have faith the bankers and Congress know what they are doing. Eventually, we will default on everything due to no jobs and the self-importation of 20 million poverty-level people, and the displacement of 10 million U.S. domestic jobs. Who now owns all the land and houses that were defaulted on during the real estate crisis? We are becoming a feudal state. Bill Gates is now the U.S. biggest farmland owner. Bill Gates owns hundreds of thousands of acres across the United States, including 242,000 acres of farmland, making him the country's top agricultural landholder. 242,000 acres is about a third of the size of Rhode Island of farmland across as many as 18 states, with the biggest holdings in Louisiana and Arkansas. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk among U.S. billionaires getting richer during the pandemic. America's 614 billionaires grew their net worth by a collective $931 billion. At the same time, tens of millions of Americans lost their job. More than 11 million Americans remain unemployed, and many shops and restaurants will never reopen. Some families that once saw themselves beyond the reach of poverty now need help feeding their families and avoiding eviction. Great inequity occurs before each significant crash. It was right in 1929 and in 2008. When corporations and CEOs suck the life out of the middle class, it sets in motion all the indicators for the economic and financial decline. Personally, I've been watching this since the mid-1980s. It's a question of when it all crashes totally, like watching the sea nibbling away at some coastal ruin. There are good seasons and worse, but inexorably the sea is back gnawing away. Money is not an endless commodity. You can't just print more of it whenever you need it, because that causes inflation. The money only becomes worthless, so you don't really gain anything. In fact, it hurts everybody, even the wealthy. The net value of the money stays more or less the same. Most of the wealth in the United States belongs to only a few people. That means that the great mass of people has to share what is left over. There is not enough money to go around. Companies can't pay higher salaries to workers because there isn't the money to do it. It's all going to the rich people, probably the ones who own or run the company. So how do you fix this? You stop giving massive tax breaks to the wealthy at the expense of the middle class. We start valuing hard work and paying the people who actually create the products a reasonable wage. We fix it so that the only way you can make money isn't sitting behind a desk and planning how to screw the average worker. I'm not optimistic, I don't see any of this happening, but we could make it happen if we really get out and vote for what's in our interest and not the interest of the politicians and their cronies. Don't let them give the top few an $800 billion tax cut at the cost of healthcare for regular citizens. If we don't do it now, we will probably never get a better chance to do it. We, the middle class of America, are living under a draconian dictatorship that has declared financial martial law on us. The baby boomers took their lumps and choked on the tear gas in the 60s for what did result, for a brief time, in an improved society. The government made sure that would not be allowed to happen again. We are bent but not beaten. But we absolutely need to rise up and fight. The government and the corporations are not going to stop with their greed just because we don't like it. We need to wrest power away from them. Otherwise, small businesses can't compete anymore. Monopoly corporations like tech companies are taking over. We are about to realize the hard way that there is no longer a middle class in America. They only want the poor and the rich. It's sad that the middle class still doesn't see what's going on. This time if you make $50,000 or less, you qualify for the third stimulus. It's all about the rich getting richer and controlling.